Today we are talking about anxiety and inflammatory bowel disease, but more specifically than that, we're talking about anxiety spirals. And I like to call this I'm dying again, because that encapsulates what anxiety spirals are for me. My name's Jacob and I've been suffering with inflammatory bowel disease for over 10 years, and more specifically than that, ulcerative colitis. And over that time, I have had many anxiety spirals. So I'm going to be talking today about what are they, my personal experiences with anxiety spirals, and what we can do about them. So let's start off with what are they. First of all, let's talk about what anxiety even is. And I like to define it as worrying about something that could happen. Not that it's going to happen, but could potentially happen. Worrying about the future. And that could be anything in the future. Not so much worrying about what's happened in the past, although that can happen, about a decision that you've recently made and how that's going to affect you in the future. So it's usually something that's going to be happening ahead of you. And an anxiety spiral is when you kind of get stuck in this situation and you get stuck in this looped thinking. That's how I like to define it. It is looped thinking. And you get very caught on this one subject and it's causing you immense anxiety. And that could be, in terms of inflammatory bowel disease, that could be a potential symptom, a side effect, a decision that you've made that could impact your inflammatory bowel disease, anything along those lines, and you're worrying about what is going to happen ahead of you. That is an anxiety spiral. And you might experience these when you're trying to go to sleep, and that's when they happen mostly to me, or you've just noticed a certain symptom that is new, you Google it, suddenly you're in a death spiral and you think that you're dying again. Because if you've experienced one of these, it's likely that you've experienced a number of them. Personally, I've gone through this many times, and that's why I like to say again, because it happens over and over again. So that is what an anxiety spiral is in simple terms. So what are my experiences like with anxiety spirals? Well, like I mentioned earlier, like I've noticed a new symptom. Spelled symptom wrong. Anyway, so I might have noticed something unusual, something I've not experienced before, so I have no knowledge about what's going on, and I start thinking the worst. And then the worst thing I do is I Google it, and it's just all in the aim of getting some knowledge about it. But I tend to find that whatever you research is going to make you freak out more. So for instance, one of the times that I can remember is I talked about it in one of my previous videos about sleep. I was taking a sleep medication called diphenhydramine, otherwise known as Nital or Benadryl. And I finally looked up on Reddit, actually, of all places, and I looked up people's experiences, and many people were saying, this is going to give you dementia in your old age. And this wash of fear comes over me. And I think, what the hell have I been doing to myself? Oh my God, I need to act now. And it's all I can think about. And all I need to do is come up with a plan to come off this medication as fast as possible. And that's what I call an anxiety spiral. And I'm locked in reading Reddit posts, Google search results, scouring Discords, looking for information from anyone, asking ChatGPT, how can I deal with this? What's going on? What's my percentage chance that I'm going to die from this? And ChatGPT will give you a percentage of what it thinks is going to happen. That's an anxiety spiral. You're going all out searching, looking for information. I find this to be one of the roots of an anxiety spiral. It's looking for information. And it's sort of in an effort to calm yourself. You're trying to find new information that can help get you out of this situation. But I tend to find it's this searching for information actually makes the anxiety spiral worse. And I just want to write this down, makes it worse. Because it really does. The more you search for new information, the more it makes you worry about it. And this has happened to me in all sorts of ways. It could be a new sharp pain in my lung that turns out to be referred pain and I just need the toilet. And I think, oh my God, I'm dying. It happens so often. This phrase, I'm dying, You utter it so many times. It's kind of funny looking back. So those are my experiences with an anxiety spiral. And it is so many different things. It's always the same thing. Always the same loop. You notice something new, you look for information, and it makes you worry about it more. And it becomes like this, a never-ending spiral. And depending how hard you look for information will be how long you're staying up tonight. But sometimes you might put off looking for new information. And maybe you've experienced an anxiety spiral before. And you think, I've noticed something new, it's freaking me out. I'll just go to bed and think about it tomorrow. And then you're lying in bed and you won't stop thinking about it. And all you can do is like, oh, I could just pick up my phone and Google this. And you put it off, or I would put it off. And then hours go by and you're still thinking about it. And you finally look it up. And then you freak yourself out and you want to phone an ambulance that night because you start looking for that information. It makes it worse. You're bang in an anxiety spiral. They're hard to get out of. And oftentimes you might find if it's something that has come up that night, you're worried about it, you end up falling asleep, you wake up the next morning, it really doesn't seem like such a big deal. And that leads me on to what can we do about it? Because that's one of the things that we can do about it, is actually just wait until the next morning. And if it is really that important, that thing will still hurt the next morning and we can move on to one of my suggestions that I'm about to say. So, the first thing you can do is wait until morning. Oftentimes you might just be panicking about something that really isn't that big of a deal, but it seems like a huge deal in that moment. So waiting until the next morning, sleep on it. If you can get some sleep, that is. Wait until the morning, excuse me, and really see if you're still worrying about it in the morning. Oftentimes you'll find you just stop caring by the morning, unless it's still a problem. It's some sort of pain or something. In fact, one of the most recent times, I just want to go into this quickly. One of the most recent times I had an anxiety spiral was I was cooking some meat. And I'm very particular about cooking meat because I'm worried about getting sick from food poisoning. So I'm cooking my minced beef or ground beef, whatever you want to call it. It's beef and it's ground up. I'm cooking it and then I think, oh, it had a weird smell to it. And I go and I look at the meat that wasn't cooked and I think, oh, it smells really sweet. And I look online and it says sweet smelling beef means it's an overgrowth of bacteria. And I think, oh my God, when did I open this beef? I've eaten 150 grams of this beef just now. Am I going to get food poisoning? And I go straight to ChatGPT. Since ChatGPT has been a thing, I go straight to ChatGPT and I say, I've just eaten this. And it goes, oh, judging by what you said, that it sounds like it could be, lists all the bacteria like salmonella, all this other stuff. And it says, if you don't start throwing up within 2 hours, you've passed these bacteria. And then now you have to wait 2 days to see if you get sick. And then it could have been these bacteria. And after 2 days, it's likely you're going to be okay. And then I like to ask, what percentage chance do you give me of being sick? And it's like, I give you a 5% chance. I'm like, okay. And then I add in information. I'm also on immunosuppressants for my inflammatory bowel disease. And they're like, well, that's new information. I'm going to increase your risk from 5 to 10 to 15%. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm worried now. I keep looking at the beef. Oh, it's a bit slimy. Maybe it was gone off. Oh no, I did cook it fully through, but might have had this overgrowth of bacteria. And then ChatGPT tells me that it's not the bacteria that's harmful, it's the byproducts the bacteria makes. And even if you kill the bacteria of cooking, you could still get sick from the toxins that they produce. And I'm entering an anxiety spiral and I'm worrying about it all day. And I go up to everyone in my house and I say, smell this beef. Do you think I'm going to be sick tomorrow? I've cooked this through. Do you think I'm going to be sick tomorrow? That's a classic anxiety spiral for me. Happens very regularly. This literally happened last week. It could be about anything. And that's because I'm quite an inexperienced cook. I just cook meat all the way through and I eat it. I don't know the intricacies of storing meat other than keeping it in the fridge and eat it relatively soon. And it's a lack of knowledge that leads to anxiety spirals. So gaining knowledge is very useful for the future, but it really in the moment makes an anxiety spiral worse. So anyway, wait until the morning. I wait, the next day I wasn't sick. I didn't throw up. I didn't get food poisoning. I was fine. I probably should not have been worrying about it. So wait until the morning. The next thing you could do, if you can't wait until morning because you can't fall asleep, is take action. Now, what does take action mean? What does it look like? So what you can do is write yourself a plan. Whatever that anxiety spiral is about, write some information down. This can just help you feel a bit better in that moment, make you feel like you're gaining control over the situation. Because oftentimes an anxiety spiral is fueled by the feeling of not being in control. When I was eating that beef and I thought, I've eaten the beef, I'm out of control. It's inside my stomach. The bacteria have been released and ingested and I have no say over what's going to happen. So I felt like I was out of control. And taking action can help you feel like that you've gained control. And in that moment, even though I was in an anxiety spiral, I used ChatGPT to come up with a plan. And that was to have these time markers. So after 2 hours, I was like, well, I haven't thrown up yet. I might be okay. Now let's wait the next 2 days. And my action plan, even though it sounds silly, was to just wait and stay hydrated. And that was my plan. And now if you're worried about something else, say in terms of inflammatory bowel disease, you're worried about bleeding. That's oftentimes the case with ulcerative colitis. You're bleeding, you're worried, you feel out of control, there's nothing you can do. Well, there is something that you can do. You can take action. And that might be a plan to stay hydrated. That might be a plan to eat certain foods to help fuel you and fuel that healing, like red meats, all the good things that provide building blocks for healing. Revitalize yourself with vitamins and nutrients. That could be your plan. So it could be a simple plan, like, have a drink and some electrolytes. But take action, write something down, something you think is going to help towards whatever you're worrying about. Now, whatever you're worrying about, it could be about anything. So it's very specific what you're going to write your plan about. But just write some things down. Other than that, taking action could be a form of just writing down the worries. Write down worries. Sometimes just writing things out can help pull them out of your head and keep them to the paper. And in some cultures, they then take that paper and then burn it to symbolize the worries being free. So you could try that. But write down your worries as a starter. That can help calm you down. The next thing you could do is learn. Learn about why, whatever you're worrying about, learn about it in more detail once the anxiety has calmed down. So next time that problem arises, you have more information about it. The next thing you can do is identify your triggers. So for instance, for me, I know that not cooking my meat through is a trigger for me to be anxious. And then I start worrying, did I cook that meat through? I'm worried. Was that meat cooked through properly? Am I going to get food poisoning? That's eliminated by I just bought a food thermometer. Now I can check the temperature of the food and then I don't have to worry about it. So that was one of my triggers. I identified it. And then as a sub point to identify triggers, it's then set up precautions. So for me, that was getting that meat thermometer. For you, in terms of inflammatory bowel disease, it might be having electrolytes on deck. When you start bleeding, you start flaring, you start taking in those electrolytes with your water. That's a precaution to keep yourself hydrated. You might write down an action plan. So when you do start flaring, you don't have to think. You just open up your book and it says 1, stay hydrated. 2, go outside and get some sun. 3, take a deep breath. Do you know what I mean? Write yourself a plan. So when you are in that anxious state, you know exactly what to do. So that's setting up precautions and identifying your triggers. That's a huge one because one of the best things you can do is just avoid the anxiety spiral altogether. But going back to learning, I find this to be one of the most useful things for combating future anxiety spirals. For instance, I used to really worry about bleeding with my ulcerative colitis. And then I talked to my specialist and many people, and they say the amount of blood that you lose in the bathroom is not enough to die from blood loss. And then the next time that you start bleeding in the toilet, you know that you're actually going to be okay in this moment. Yes, over time there might be a problem, but right now, today, tonight, you'll be fine. It does suck, but you will be fine. And you can just go back to doing your plan, like staying hydrated. It's very important. That's why I keep bringing it up. And that way you're going to feel better about the whole situation. So I find these things to be very useful. Now, the thing is, you can't combat every anxiety spiral because with the nature of them is they will come up around things you don't understand and you have no information about. So having some generalized things for you to do, like writing down your worries, generalized things that can be used for any situation is very important. So not only identifying your triggers, because you don't know what all your triggers are yet, but identify methods to calm yourself down. Identify calming methods. So for instance, that could be confiding in someone else, talking to another person. All right, confide in others. Now, this will be very personal. I'm just giving you some ideas here. For instance, we're going to say, write it down. For me, it could be record a video. Oh, that's an A. Record a video. It could be talk to a specialist. It could be find a Discord or a community. Find a community. A lot of it comes down to finding experiences from others who have been through the same thing and check if they're okay. For instance, just to go back to the start of the video, when I mentioned that I was on this sleeping pill, I did also find Reddit posts from older people who have taken it for many, many years and they were fine. You can always find a balance to each side of the story. So, though that was my video on anxiety spirals, and if you are struggling with this or anything to do with inflammatory bowel disease, I urge you to check out the link in the description and join my waiting list for one-to-one support. I can help you out with your IBD. So, thank you so much for watching, and I really hope that some of this has helped you because anxiety spirals have been a big problem for me, and I'm sure they're a problem for many of you watching. Thank you once again, and I hope to see you in the next video.